Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of the Hall of Fame show. And I'm Kirk Buchner along with Evan Nolan. And, buddy, this is it. We
You know
have,
how you can tell it's important?
you're dressed up and I'm not.
I'm wearing a tie. That is right. I'm wearing a tie in front of where I recorded the videos this year. Well, I guess I should change the angle here because it looks a little bit weird
Okay,
on this
well,
camera.
okay. How about
Whatever.
this? I've got a t shirt of someone who got inducted last year.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So there.
Nice.
And of course, we're talking about the United States Athletics Hall of Fame, the creation Evan and I came up with. One of those eureka moments where if and hopefully it never comes to a legal thing where we have to say who really did come up with it and have to go through hours and hours of footage. I don't know who came up with it. It's just ours, and that's
I'm
good.
not going to fight you on it if you want to come out and say it's yours.
I really don't.
I mean, what it came out of, honestly, is on our normal podcast. I do my list of people who have passed away, and I brought up somebody who was in the Australian Sports Hall of Fame and someone who's in Canadian Sports Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
And I believe you asked, is there an American Sports Hall of Fame? And then we realized there wasn't.
Okay. Well, there you go. You have a much better memory than I, which is
Yeah.
not difficult. But this is a special show where we are going to tell you the results of the online vote. And this is the great thing. The vote is all up to all of you. We say that every week, but we mean it because believe us, if it was up to us, this may not have been the 25 we would have picked.
Yeah, I'm not saying that anyone doesn't deserve to be here. That's ridiculous. All
I'm
these
not either.
people
Yeah.
are deserving of it. It's not necessarily the 25 we would have picked. And just as a coming attraction, if this were us, number 26 would definitely be in the hall just for the publicity reasons. But he unfortunately finished.
Yep.
How many votes short did he finish? I'll tell you that much. He finished 7 votes short
Mhm.
of making the top 25. So, well,
Well,
we'll
I
get
think
there
we,
eventually.
we should. And we're going to be featuring some new sports that were not represented in the first class. So that's
Correct.
really good. We are very well represented. We Our first concern when we put this together, I think you were a little more concerned than I was, but it was certainly a concern of mine too. Uh, our demographics, I mean, I can see the demographics. I don't really know the age per se, but I'm guessing it's a lot older than I thought based on who got in. Uh,
I wasn't sure we had that many people from the 1800s still alive, but who
I,
knew?
there you go. Recency bias was not in effect here. We'll tell you that. It
No,
may not
no,
seem that way as we're doing the first few, but as we get into the team sports, it certainly will.
yeah,
Uh,
we were worried about recency bias. We were worried about women getting in. We had a fail safe. What happens if a woman never got inducted?
which
Last
we've
year, our
not had
initial
to.
class, we had 2 of the 25. This year, we have 25 more. 5 of them are women.
Mhm.
So, including the number 2 vote getter and the number 4 vote getter overall. So,
Right. So that was certainly not an issue, and we're really happy about that. Uh, you know what? Let's just get right into it. Let's not keep it
absolutely.
waiting. Maybe we'll alternate who got in.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you start with number 1? Because I wanted, or do you want to start with number 2 so you can talk about number 26 when we get there?
Sure.
All right. So our number 1 vote getter this time through, which is a little surprising because he was number 49 last year. Multiple time swimming Olympian, gold medal winner Mark Spitz is
Mhm.
our first inductee to the class of 2024.
Yeah, certainly the face of the 72 Olympics and a much
Mhm.
needed face at that, considering what the travesty that took place there in Munich.
Absolutely.
At number 2, and I guess our highest female vote getter of all time at this point, would it
Yep.
not
In
be?
terms of position, anyway.
Yeah, in terms of position. Uh, and we're now represented again by a sport that was not here before. We're going to speed skating and the greatest female speed skater of all time, and that's Bonnie Blair.
Yeah. Blair finished just outside last time. Speed skating did really well last time. Bonnie Blair finished 30th. Eric Heiden 29th. Heiden did not make this list. But it's good to see Bonnie Blair, who is an incredible athlete at her sport, make it all the way this way. So
Yeah,
good for her.
another thing, just sort of like to point out, one thing that we were also a little worried about, especially from last time, because we learned a little bit as we're going, and you're going through the trials and tribulations with all of us. We also worried about an alphabetism bias.
That is also true.
Bonnie Blair being a B, Mark S, and we're going to have a Y coming up later. So why
And we're
we
gonna have one of the categories was led by a Z, so that takes everything away.
I'm
So
sure there's a lot of people watching this, like, and their minds are spinning right now. And it may not be what you're thinking, but once you hear it, you're going to go, of course.
yeah, so let's keep going. Number three, our first male tennis player, if
Mm-hmm.
I am not mistaken, finishing in third place, John McEnroe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can't be serious that he didn't finish in the first class, but he's the third highest vote getter for class number two.
Yeah, bad boy of tennis. My favorite person to watch when I was a kid. Just you just gotta love somebody who just put it all out there. I'm
Yeah,
really happy he's here.
and McEnroe finished 45th last time, so we sort of expected to be in this class, and he is.
Mm-hmm.
So
At number four, if Martina Navratilova is going to be in, her best friend and and chief rival should be in also, Chris Everett.
yeah, Chrissy Everett made more. I did the whole thing on her. She made more semifinals and Grand Slam tournaments than anyone else, and it's not particularly close. It's kind of amazing how many she made.
Oh, she still holds that. Serena didn't take
She still
that.
holds that. She and Serena are tied in quarterfinals, but she has the most semifinals and finals in her career.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So she was 48th last year, run ahead of Spitz. So she was expected to be here as well. Also expected to be here, our number one person who missed out last year, which I was a little surprised at the time. He was only 2 votes short in 26th last year. But Mike Tyson, Iron Mike, joins the hall. His performance earlier this year had no effect on his voting, apparently. So Iron Mike is
Mhm.
our third boxer in the hall, I believe.
I believe so. Yeah. Another heavyweight. Heavyweight certainly dominates this. Tyson, if you watched him, you couldn't take your eyes off him, whether you loved him, hated him, or indifferent. That
Mm-hmm.
he was the man. We're going now to football, and we weren't kidding. We're going way back here, and it's Red Grange. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the first, the guy who was a big part of actually growing pro football, because a lot of people don't remember. Why would we? We weren't alive, despite how old I am. College football was king, and he was one of the few college stars who actually went to play pro. Without Red Grange, pro football might look completely different.
Yeah, Grange was actually mocked at the time for going pro. He actually found his own competing football league to the NFL.
Mhm.
Did all sorts of things. That story is incredible. That was one of my favorite ones to tell this year. But Grange was all the way down in. Hold on a second. Where was he? I just had him and I lost him. He was all the way down in 75th and made the jump all the way up to number 6 this year.
Crazy.
Yeah, right with them. Going back to Tyson, someone else who likes punching people in the face. Uh, the oldest, toughest man in the history of baseball, uh, Nolan Ryan, comes in at number 7, famous for his multiple no hitters, his leading baseball and career strikeouts, and his pummeling of Robin Ventura. So Nolan Ryan is one of the newest members of baseball, one of the youngest people, believe it or not. You never think of him being young, but pretty much everyone else was from the golden age baseball. He's, I believe, overall the person who started his career latest of anyone we have in the hall at this point.
He started in '67, I believe.
I
So I know
believe
he's
that's
on
correct.
68 for the
Yeah,
Mets.
we have Gehrig, Clemente, DiMaggio, Mays, Aaron, Ted Williams. Those guys are all predate him. So
Someone's got to be youngest.
someone's got to be youngest. He is for now. So.
Yeah. Well, we're going to the hard court here, and the first real master of the triple double. We're proud to bring in Oscar Robertson.
Mm-hmm. The big O.
When I think of Robertson, I think of he's almost one of those equivalents to Karl Malone, not necessarily in play, but Charles Barkley. Like, damn it, why don't I have to play at the same time as Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
But right. Robertson is a phenomenal player. It's great to see him here, and I'm happy that he wasn't overlooked.
I am as well. He was 79th last year, which I thought was crazy low. We had a lot of really great basketball players that kind of got cleared out of the way. Robertson is one of the recipients of Jordan and Abdul-Jabbar and Bird and Magic and everybody getting in. So it's great to see that he made it this far up. All right, now we get into the old school, like Red Grange's old school football. We have some more old school football, three
We
in a
do.
row to come up with. The first is our second quarterback in. We had Joe Montana as the last person to get in. This time we have Slinging Sammy Ball
Mm-hmm.
comes in in ninth place, which is I'm not surprised he's in, but he did very, very well for this. He is actually 74th last year, one ahead of Grange and one behind our 25th person who got in. Um, but a heck of a football player, one of the first great quarterbacks in the league. And the last Bear who could throw a football correctly. So, yeah, still the best quarterback the Bears have ever produced. So,
Well, there's a song over the last few years. I don't know who sings it because I'm not hip anymore, like I ever was. But all I do is win, 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 no matter what. We're staying old school. We're staying with the quarterback, Otto Graham,
yeah,
and all he did was win, win, win. 4 years in the AAFC, won them all. They merged with the NFL. What does he do? Proves that that league was just as good. He wins. I know that our friend Ken Crippen will be very, very happy with this induction and this selection. Congratulations to the Cleveland Browns. Huh? You don't say that often.
yeah. Otto Graham was surprisingly 86th last year, which I thought was ridiculously low. Great to see him. I'm less surprised to see Graham than I was to see Ball. But Otto Graham, I mean, got to be the winningest quarterback of the first half of the century easily. So, also, well, sticking with old school football, we have our first wide receiver. Although
Not
at
who
the
we
time he
thought,
played,
but still good.
yeah, they weren't called wide receivers back then. I made a joke when I did this that for most football play or for most teams, you say who's the greatest wide receiver, they're going to tell you Jerry Rice, who, spoiler alert, did not make our list this year. He finished in 28th. But if you ask Packers fans, they'll tell you the greatest wide receiver of all time is our number 11, Don Hutson, is a member of the class of 2024.
And a good defensive player, too.
Very good defensive player. That's true. I guess technically he's our first defensive player as well. So,
Oh, that's one thing that we've been
because we only had last year, we only had Jim Brown and Joe Montana. So,
yeah, which was a shock at the time for sure.
mm-hmm.
Well, we're sticking old school. We are going baseball, and well, there's a certain award that the greatest pitcher in each league will win. It's called the Cy Young Award. There was a Cy Young for a lot of people who may not know that. He's got records that will never be touched. We don't even know if we're going to see anyone have 300 wins, let alone 511 that he has. It's 511. I think I got that right.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So Cy Young, obviously, if you win 511 games, you're pretty damn good. And if they name the pitcher of the year after you, you're damn good. Congratulations.
Yeah. Young also has the most career losses in baseball history. But the difference is, or in wins, he's got 97 more than second place. For losses, he's only 5 ahead in losses. Just to give you an idea is how many games he won back in the day. All right, coming at number 13, the very first video I ever recorded for a candidate last year was for an athlete in track and field who won at one point 122 consecutive races, including 107 consecutive finals in the 400-meter hurdles between 1977 and 1987. And that is Edwin Moses. My son who's we don't call him this, but whose actual first name is Edwin, was very, very excited to see the only Edwin on the list get in. But Edwin Moses, very, very deserving of being the top track and field person getting in this year.
Would have won another one that had the United States not boicotted in 1980.
That's correct. Yep. He has Olympic medals in 2 Olympic gold medals during that time period, but he was one of the people who was caught in that 1980 boycott that really affected a bunch of people on our list. So
yes, it did. Yes, it did. Well, this is we talk about how we're going to nominate people regardless of character. And the character of this man has come into question, although in recent years, maybe it's been overblown as to what he was. And that might be why he's here. One of the finest hitters of all time, Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
Prior to, well, I guess, is that because of through Major League Baseball? Yeah, I guess it is. He was the all-time leading hitter with in terms of average. Now with the inclusion of the Negro Leagues, that's no longer the case. But he was the hit king before Pete Rose overtook him.
Mm-hmm.
Just an amazing hitter. It's good to see him here. Having said that, if you didn't vote for him, you might understand why.
Yeah, although it's been shown that the Cobb's legacy was marred by one hit piece in the book,
Which,
and that
yeah,
a lot of people disagreed with it, and I think that's coming more and more to light. But it's very hard to have a Sports Hall of Fame without Ty Cobb
absolutely. Yep.
in it. By the way, Cobb finished 37th last year, so he's somewhere you expect to get in. Moses was 61st, just as we're going on. For in case anyone's scoring at home, and if you are, I feel sorry for you, but just in case. The lowest rated person from our list last year to get in, not that they were actually 116th on the list of 130 last year, but one of the greatest swimmers of all time. This was it just Mark Spitz from swimming here? We also had the former world record holder in 5 events, 11-time Olympic medalist, and competitive swimmer in 84, 88, and 92 games, winning 11 medals. Matt Biondi is a member of the class of 2024.
Yeah, probably the biggest surprise. And again, to your point earlier, if you're nominated here, we obviously think, and collectively, a very esteemed group, if I do say so myself, thought
Mm-hmm.
that he was worthy for you to vote. But based on patterns and what we've seen, he is the biggest shock to us.
Yep,
But congratulations, Matt. Well,
absolutely.
physicians are welcome in the Hall of Fame, and we've got a good one here. Dr. J. Julius Irving is here. The best player ever to grace the ABA, and when the ABA merged with the NBA, he made sure that that was no fluke. Champion with the Sixers, big man, great man. Congratulations, you're in.
Also had a heck of a one-on-one basketball game with Larry Bird on the Atari 7600, which I played a lot as a child. Dr. J is basically the coolest man who ever played basketball. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there's much to say about that. He also, if I remember correctly from what I was doing in this off the top of my head, I believe he's one of 8 players in history to average a triple double for his entire collegiate career at the University of Massachusetts.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. He didn't think he was that good. He just thought he was all right. And then he got brought into the U.S. national team training camp and was dominating the guys from the big schools. It was like, maybe I am better than I think I am. That he did was pretty good. Julius Irving last year was number 32. So he was somebody I fully expected getting with this class, and I'm glad to see him here. We had 3 race car drivers who got in, but only 1 NASCAR driver. And so coming in at number 17, if you only have 1 NASCAR driver, who's that NASCAR driver?
Got to be the king.
You got to be the king. Richard Petty, who was 77th crazily on our list last year, comes in as the 17th person inducted into class of 2024. 200 career wins on the NASCAR track. Just to put that in perspective, if I remember correctly, I know who it is. I'm trying to remember the number. I believe second place is David Pearson. I know it is David Pearson. But I believe he only has 106 wins, meaning he has 94 more wins than second place. That is as dominant as you can get in a sport. So Richard Petty, a very, very deserving member of our class.
Well, right behind him, but not really on the track. It's AJ Foyt, who competed year after year after year after year. And we know that in racing, you can go a lot longer. Foyt went a long, long time. He also competed a bit in NASCAR, but more known for his IndyCar work. Foyt has wins everywhere. And yeah, auto racing has done very, very well after not particularly placing all that well in year one.
Mm-mm. Yeah, auto racing did terribly our first year. And like I said, we have 3 people this year. It's great to see Foyt here. He was 102nd last year. He's one of the 2, he and Biondi were the 2 people over 100 who made it in with this class. So great to see him here. We're going to go back to back in another sport that we did not have anyone in before. I want to start with the first woman ever to really hold the title of America's Sweetheart. 1976 figure skating wonderkind Dorothy Hamill is coming in as our 19th person on the ballot. It helped that she was really the 1976 Olympics was the first that was broadcast nationally on American TV, but with her bob haircut and her big glasses, she came home not really realizing what a huge star she was because she stayed in Europe after the Olympics in 76. And yeah, just an absolute incredible figure skater. Our first skater that we have in the hall. Congratulations to Dorothy Hamill.
And as Evan said, going back to back, but we're going a little bit further back. What Dorothy Hamill was to 76, Peggy Fleming was to 68. Peggy Fleming, when you talk about grace on the ice, Peggy Fleming's face is there. I don't know about she wasn't necessarily the first. I don't want to call Dorothy Hamill a rock star, but she was an iconic figure. But Peggy Fleming is the woman you wanted your daughter to be. And it's nice to see figure skating represented. I'll admit I'm a little surprised we got two.
I am as well.
Yeah, but it is nice to see.
Yeah. So just by the way, they were 90th and 97th last year. They both have made the jump here.
So presumably people who voted for Dorothy probably voted for Peggy.
That would be my guess. They were pretty close in votes. There was only about 7 votes between them. So that it wouldn't surprise me if that was the situation. All right. Next up, honestly, in my opinion, someone absolutely deserving, but one of the more surprising ones to see on here for me. The Raja played 23 years in Major League Baseball, the Cardinals, Giants, Braves, Cubs, and Browns. Rogers Hornsby is a member of the class of 2024. I'm not surprised that he's in, but again, we see Cy Young, we see Ty Cobb as the kind of members of the first class of the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm surprised if the third one getting in was Hornsby and not, say, Mickey Mantle or Walter Johnson or a few others. But the Raja absolutely belongs. And he is here as our 21st member of our class. Last year, Hornsby finished 88th. So Hornsby, Hudson, and Fleming back to back to back, 88 through 90. All three of them get in. So
yeah, and again, definitely belongs, but a little bit surprising considering some of the other bigger known ball players, at least in terms of pageantry and legacy, but belongs for sure. And we're going back to the track for this one. Somebody who does belong, and I use the term rock star. I'm going to use that again. I think that this woman was the first female rock star in the world of track and field. And if you look at Sha'Carri Richardson, this is the person she modeled everything after, her whole style. And that's FloJo, Florence Griffith Joyner. Fast, 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 fast. Dominated sprinting for years. There is a belief that maybe she might have done something that she shouldn't have to get there. We're not judging. Doesn't matter. This is all up to all of you.
She also never failed a drug test.
She also never failed a drug test. So that also has to be kept in mind. And a lot of you did. FloJo, again, belongs here. FloJo was the way I've always said about Sha'Carri, only times 10. I can't take my eyes off her. I couldn't take my eyes off FloJo.
Yeah. And FloJo wasn't just a track star. She was an all-around star. She's a fashion icon as well. So it had a huge effect on American culture, not just track and field. And then unfortunately lost her far too young. But yeah, absolutely deserving of being here. She was 31st last year. Again, someone else I thought was a shoo-in to get in, and I'm glad to see that she made it. Next up so last year we had Martina Navratilova, who was born in Czechoslovakia, defected to the United States, and became a citizen. This year we have someone else who was born actually in what is now Croatia. At the time was Italy. But went on to become so good at his sport that he is synonymous with driving fast. And that is Mario Andretti, is here as the 23rd member of our class. An absolute winner on multiple disciplines of race car driving. He was number 83 last year on our list. So as I said, the race car driving auto racing was way too low last year on everything. It's fantastic to see Andretti here. I'll tell you, every time I voted, which wasn't a ton, I tried. I don't want to like massively overrate everything, but the one person I voted for on the first page every time was Andretti. So I'm glad to see him here.
Yeah, because you could vote every day.
Yeah, I did not vote every day, just so you guys know.
I did not either. My biggest surprise, and again, I have no problem with anybody here, but we're going back to the 70s when they were kings, but it's not. Ali's already in. George Foreman did not get in, but Joe Frazier did. Mm-hmm. Joe Frazier, former heavyweight champion of the world in a time when heavyweight boxing has always sort of like been the bigger deals until maybe the last 15 years. But Frazier was an incredible pugilist. The only person who is a first-time nominee because to get in, and had Evan and I made a wager as to who that would be the first time, neither of us would have picked Frazier.
If we'd had a draft of everybody who's a first-time nominee, Frazier is probably a 6th or 7th round pick for us if you go through everybody.
Right, but we're not the deciders.
We're not in charge.
All of you are, and you have elected Joe Frazier. Smoking Joe into the hall.
In goes Frazier.
Well done.
Thank you. And the last member of our class, apparently we're setting a precedent here. The 25th person in class has to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Last year was Joe Montana. This year it's a man who, when he retired in 1973, held essentially every passing record there was to hold in football. As famous for his flat top as his throwing arm, Johnny Unitas, is the 25th and final member of the class of 2024. Unitas had been number 73 last year. Like I said, Unitas, Bog, Range, back to back between 73 and 75 on our list last year. All three of them get in. I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised to Unitas. I'm surprised that he was behind Baugh and Graham. But I'm glad to see that Unitas is a member of the class of 2024. So there is the athletes. Again, should I just read them through?
Yeah. Do you want to go through do we want to read off 26 to 50 and then just because what I'm looking at
let's read 1 to 25 and we'll do 26 to 50 after.
Sure.
So the class is Mark Spitz, Bonnie Blair, John McEnroe, Chris Everett, Mike Tyson, Red Grange, Nolan Ryan, Oscar Robertson, Sammy Baugh, Otto Graham, Don Hudson, Cy Young, Edwin Moses, Ty Cobb, Matt Biondi, Julius Irving, Richard Petty, AJ Foyt, Dorothy Hamill, Peggy Fleming, Rogers Hornsby, Florence Griffith Joyner, Mario Andretti, Joe Frazier, and Johnny Unitas. Congratulations to all 25.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all. Congratulations to all of you for helping us do this.
Correct.
What amazes me is we're just sort of looking through, when we're looking at 26 to 50, this is a loaded group.
Well, just the next 10 is a crazy class, and all 10 of them were in.
I think 26 to 50 is so loaded that if this was flipped, I don't think the people would sort of be surprised.
That is entirely true.
Yeah, and so these are the people that you're going to be voting on next year. And if you maintain this pattern, this will be the class, but you won't maintain this pattern.
Well, if this were the pattern from last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, only 9 of the top 25 got in, or the next 25 got in. So you never know.
Listen to this group, kids. At 26, of course he finished 26.
Yeah,
of course he did. Oh, Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. Like I said, if we were messing with this, Pete Rose would be in this class, just for the publicity of Pete Rose got into this Hall of Fame and not the Baseball Hall of Fame. So,
do you want to still alternate?
Yeah. So the biggest surprise for me who didn't get in are the next two. I was sure he was a shoo-in. Last year he finished 28th, so 3 spots out. This year he finished 27th, 2 spots out. Sweetness, Walter Payton is number 27 here. I'm here in Chicago. apparently not enough Chicago people are voting. So we got to work on that.
Well, as much as we're happy for Don Hudson, we would have wagered and lost
Yep.
that Jerry Rice would have got in before him. Jerry is still on the ballot. We have someone because Evan and I are part of our little football chat group on X, formerly Twitter, as Evan will always refuse to call it X, but that's okay. One of our friends, Brian Fry, considers Jerry Rice to be the finest football player of all time. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a case there. There
Yep.
absolutely is. But
He was,
Jerry Rice is someone you can vote for next year.
he was 36 last year, moved up to 28th, but just not quite enough to get in. Next, the person I would have expected to get in over Rogers Hornsby, Honus Wagner, owner of the most expensive baseball card of all time. The person on
He
the
doesn't own it. He's just the face of it.
He's the face of it. That is true. But Honus Wagner, another member of the first class into the Baseball Hall of Fame, is still out for you to vote. He finished 29th.
Mm-hmm. Still in the discussion as one of the finest infielders ever.
Yep.
And someone who everyone just loved back in the day, and the day we're talking about is only the 90s. The person that we know, the only time he ever cheated on anything was Nerve Tonic. Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah. Our second first ballot person, the
Yep.
second highest person we had on for first ballot. Next up, the next NASCAR person I expect we'll be seeing getting in, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Finished in 31st.
Yeah, I thought he had a good shot at being one of the auto racers, especially because Dale was so beloved.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised it was Foyt over him. I'm not surprised he had Andretti or Petty.
Same.
But if you took a third, I would have expected Earnhardt. But again, Foyt was ridiculous, so no issues there.
Again, more proof that alphabetism is not in existence.
That's true.
Well, someone who we thought might sort of really have a shot, especially if you know your boxing history. You want to talk adversity? Try being an African American champion in the 1910s.
Mm-hmm. Who dated white women and caused a race riot when he won the championship.
Mm-hmm. And pretty much took a dive, which is believed.
Maybe.
Well, we don't know for sure. But Jack Johnson, who, when you learn his story, he persevered more than most of these people put together.
Yeah, he finished 27th last year, so second out. He fell a little bit, but he's still right in the group here. Another figure skater, our figure skater first time ballot nominee, Christy Yamaguchi, finished here in 33rd.
Yeah, she did very, very well. I thought I thought she had like a dark horse shot at getting in first ballot. Certainly beloved, and I said this before, but my favorite line of hers was when she was on Arsenio Hall, discussing like how come you didn't compete in the '94 games? It's safer.
Yeah, I mean she was her two main rivals for most of this were Harding and Kerrigan. So
yep. Yeah, beat them both in '92, and lucky for her, one half of I think a power couple, married to Brett Hedican, I believe.
That is true.
Yeah, former NHL player.
Yep.
I didn't say in past tense, but okay. So this is up. Oh, I'm up here. Eric Heiden. Eric Heiden was, I guess I don't want to say male Bonnie Blair because he did it first, but the 1980 Olympics were two stories for the United States: the U.S. hockey team and Eric Heiden.
Yeah,
won 5 gold in those Olympics. I believe the first great speed skater from the United States.
I don't think there's any question about that. So Blair and Heiden both were very close last year. They finished 29th and 30th. Blair got in. I fully expect Heiden's not going to be very long for this list. So next up, the gentleman tennis player, the first, I believe, African-American ever to hold the #1 title for tennis, Arthur Ashe comes in at number 35.
Yeah, again, a legendary figure on and off, taken way too young.
Blood transfusion during the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah, we lost a lot of people that way, unfortunately.
We did.
A boxer who I thought should have been in earlier, he's still waiting. It's one thing to go undefeated. It's one thing to stay undefeated. It's one thing to say, I'm done with my career. You know what? I don't need the money. I'm not coming back. Rocky Marciano.
Yep. The
He's still
pride,
available.
the pride of Brockton, Massachusetts. So Brockton, Massachusetts did pretty well with producing boxers. It was Rocky Marciano and Marvelous Marvin Hagler are both from Brockton, Massachusetts. The interesting thing with Marciano stuff is how many people fought Marciano and then retired. Marciano was like the last fight for Joe Louis. Here's the last fight for like a bunch of people who he would just beat, and they're like, "Now we're done." Actually, the last fight I believe he lost because he never lost as a professional. He did lose as an amateur. He's trying out for the U.S. Golden Gloves, the Eastern Golden Gloves for the U.S. Olympic team, and he lost in the semifinals of that tournament, very controversially. And here's how controversial it was: the guy who beat him in that thing by decision was so badly beaten he couldn't compete in the finals and never boxed again. That was a guy who the last guy to beat Marciano, but again, he was an amateur at the time. Never boxed again because the beating he got was so bad. So absolutely incredible boxer. Next up, somebody who I fully expected to be in this class. We have two back-to-back first-time people here who I expected would be here. Perhaps America's greatest tennis player, certainly the greatest tennis player of the 1990s, Pete Sampras, finished at number 37.
Yeah. Uh, the only thing I can think of is why he did not is he doesn't really keep a high profile.
It's possible. And I mean, we did have McEnroe and Everett, so it's not like tennis wasn't voted for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the only
So,
thing I can really think of.
yeah,
I remember him being so dominant in his era. But another huge surprise, I think, to certainly to both you and I.
yeah.
Uh, so just a little inside baseball for everyone here. When we put our nominations to our committee, and we put a lot of work into finding some experts on this, one person ran away uh, with the vote. There was a lot of ties, and we had to sort of like wait and see who we thought was sort of like going to come through, except for one person, and that's from a sport that's not yet represented. And if it's going to be, this is probably the woman to eventually do it, and that's Mia Hamm.
Yeah. Mia Hamm dominated our vote. She
Mm-hmm.
was the only person. So what we had is people had 100 and I think it was 150, something like that. I can't remember now. It's been 6 months. People to vote for, and they could only vote for 25, and she got over half the votes. So in a situation, she's the only one who got over half the votes of the people
Yeah.
voting. So she absolutely ran away with it. I'm not surprised she finished top 50. I'm surprised she's not in the top 25, but she'll be there coming soon. This is someone who you were hoping was going to get in last year. It came
Yep.
pretty close to finish
Still am.
33rd.
So I was still hoping this year, but oh
Still
well.
hoping coming in 39th. I would say the greatest, maybe the greatest person ever to play Negro Leagues who never got to play in the majors due to some health issues.
Hmm.
Josh Gibson finished here at number 39.
Yeah. Most home runs of anyone recorded. Obviously, not all of that is necessarily verified. We know that some of the competition may not have been the best. Wasn't his fault.
Yeah, he didn't have a choice in the matter.
No, he did
So,
not. And like almost every other major leaguer probably wanted a test. They wanted him there. And
yeah, absolutely.
unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Unfortunately, Kennesaw Mountain Landis was in charge. So,
Um, I don't see him making this hall. But
no.
anywho, uh, figure skaters, we've had three females above, two who got in. If there's going to be a male figure skater who's probably going to get in at some point, it's Scott Hamilton, who was the man in the 1984 Olympics. Just was a dominant performer and is a very quality broadcaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the only two I can imagine eventually Hamilton and Dick Button, maybe, who's also a great broadcaster, is still with us. But Hamilton probably has a better shot. I would agree with you overall. The next person was another first time nominee who we joked about. All of us forgot to nominate the first time through here. He didn't get a single vote, which is very appropriate for his persona these days. But the man who saved skateboarding legitimately uh, with his with his belief after everybody else went their own separate ways. Tony Hawk came in at number 41 on our list.
Yeah, I thought he'd do a little bit better, but it's one of those things. Everyone knows his name, everyone knows what he did, but skateboarding overall, as popular as you'll see skate parks everywhere, it's not dominating the television
Mm-hmm.
and really the whole even social media for that matter. So it'll he did well, and maybe I sort of forgot that overall, but we're going to see him in the hall at some point.
He'll be here shortly. Yeah.
Another one that might be a surprise to some that she's not already in, and
Mm-hmm.
that is the person who fought for equity, who fought for pay equity more successfully than I guess the only one who could be in that category would be Megan Rapinoe, and that's Billie Jean King.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not just a gimmick from the Battle of the Sexes, way more than that. A dominant tennis player, a very influential tennis player, still with us, still has a lot to say. I like hearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very few people you could say have made more of an impact on the way sports has gone over the last century than Billie Jean King.
Mhm.
Um, Next up, perhaps the greatest all-around boxer of all time. Burst on the scene by winning the gold medal in the 1970 Olympics in the light heavyweight division. That 1976 boxing team, by the way, may be the greatest group of boxers ever assembled on one team, the U.S.
Mhm.
team of 76. But the greatest among them was Sugar Ray Leonard, who comes
Absolutely.
in here at number 43.
Oh yeah, for sure. One of the big stars, one of the big four too of those middleweight divisions, along with Hearns, Hagler, and Roberto Duran. But he was the star of that group.
Yeah,
We'll see him.
he's the one.
See him eventually.
He's the one who fought Duran and forced him to say no mas. So
Yeah. Someone who I think we both thought was going to be in maybe first ballot, but is not second ballot. Uh,
no, shockingly.
yeah, Mickey Mantle, New York, speak up. An absolute icon in a city of icons, in a sport of icons. Mickey Mantle is right up there. He will get in eventually. I don't have a problem with the ball players who got in ahead of him. I just thought people would think more fondly of Mickey.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just he wasn't just a baseball icon; he was a cultural icon.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's surprising he's still here, but here he is. Also surprising, the next one on this list, we got Florence Griffith Joyner into the hall this year. We did not get her sister-in-law, Jackie Joyner Kersey,
Hmm.
the greatest heptathlete perhaps ever. The heptathlon was created for the first time. It used to be the female pentathlon up until 1984 when the heptathlon was created. And Kersey just dominated it. She finished, I believe, the silver actually in the first one because she stumbled on the hurdles, but would win gold in '88 back in Seoul. One of the greatest track athletes of all time. We will see her in sooner than later.
No, absolutely. One of the most popular tennis players, and very good, flashy, but amazingly down to earth person, Andre Agassi. Eventually, we're going to see him, I'm sure. Uh, Multiple titles. Everyone remembers his hair, his flair, and I don't have anything else that rhymes. I did.
Yeah, and that's a man who was thought to be done due to drug usage and then completely rebounded and had a second act where he shaved his head and became better than he ever was beforehand. A reverse Samson, as it were. So,
Ooh, there you go.
um, another incredible track athlete, someone who actually, as a child, had polio and couldn't walk without braces until she was 12. And as soon as she started walking, she was running. And one of the true success stories of the Lady Bells, which were or the Tennessee State track team, which was essentially the women's track team in the 56 and 60 Olympic Games. By the way, their coach Ed Temple needs to get into our hall at some point. Just throwing that out there. But Wilma Rudolph is the next person on our list, sorry, I switched off this for a second, is number 47 on our list of the top 50.
Yeah. Defense. Defense. We're at some point well, I mean, I guess we said Don Hudson is in. So I guess in theory, Red Grange too. But
True.
you're gonna have a defensive football player. How about the minister? How about the minister of defense? Oh no, he's the secretary of defense. Sorry, I'm thinking on the Canadian thing here. Uh,
Yes, he was the Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense. No, I mean, he's the one person you could call secretary, and you'd say, what of it? It's Reggie White.
Yeah.
Just defensive player of the year twice. Big reason why players who actually wanted to go back to Green Bay. People forget that in the early 90s, like, I'm not going to Green Bay. Forget that. Reggie White did. That changed everything.
It did.
Yeah.
It
So
absolutely did. The
yeah,
Bears have not been the same since. The Bears had a huge lead over the Packers in their career series until Reggie White came along.
mm-hmm.
And since then, I think they've won. Since Reggie White joined the Packers, I believe they've only won like 5 or 6 games against the Packers during that time, which is absolutely insane domination of one team by another over that long period of time. Next up, I'm going to tell a story I heard this week about this person ahead of time. So in 1987, in Major League Baseball, the leader in steals that season was Harold Reynolds, the reporter from originally ESPN and now Major League Baseball, the Baseball Network, MLB Network. And he told a story just a couple weeks ago that when the season ended, he only won that title because number 49 on our list, Ricky Henderson, got injured that year. And when the season ended, he had the steals title. He had 60 that year. And he got home from the season being over, and he's there with his wife, and the phone rings. And he picks it up. He goes, Harold, it's Ricky. Only 60 steals? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And hangs up. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, and hung up the phone. No one was more sure of their greatness than Ricky Henderson. Henderson actually originally wanted to be a football player. He wanted to play for the Oakland Raiders.
Ooh, that would have been fun.
But his mother, because he was maybe the greatest running back the area of Oakland has ever produced in history, like a high school running back. But his mother convinced him that baseball players had longer careers than football players. And so instead of playing for the Oakland Raiders, he played for the Oakland Athletics. And that worked out pretty well. All-time steals leader in baseball history, the greatest leadoff hitter in the history of baseball, without a doubt, in my opinion. Ricky Henderson finished 49th.
Mm-hmm. And rounding this out, we all know of the trials and tribulations that Serena Williams and Venus Williams had to go through early in their career. Well, they ran because Althea Gibson walked.
Yeah.
What Althea Gibson did as an African-American female tennis player in the 50s, and having to have other people sort of fight to allow her to even play. There's some great stories about that you've told, actually. On that.
When she went to the U.S. Open, she was not only the first ever African-American tennis player to compete, she was the first African-American tennis player to ever step on the court at the U.S. Open when she was there. She actually spent time in a homeless shelter as a child. She was the New York City women's paddleball champion as a 12-year-old. They shut down the streets and had paddleball seems very similar to like a more street version of pickleball. It's essentially the best way I can think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And at 12, she was a champion. She was living in a Catholic center for battered children when her town or her neighborhood picked up a collection and got her training as a tennis player. Like Althea Gibson's story is not only one of courage, but very much a story of how it takes a village to raise somebody without the help and love of her neighborhood, and then of the competitors who she was going up against. And she once said she was the first African American ever to win Wimbledon, and coincidentally, she was the first African American woman or first Wimbledon champion who ever shook hands with Queen Elizabeth II after winning Wimbledon. And as she said afterwards, going from not being able to ride in the front of the bus to shaking hands with the Queen of England in a 9 month span was quite a change. Just an absolute American hero. I can't wait for the day Althea Gibson is in our hall. I can't speak highly enough of the three Gibsons. Right below her, just by the way, is Bob Gibson, who is my favorite. If I could pick anyone in baseball history to start my team with, I pick Bob Gibson. But all three of them, I would love to see Althea, Bob, and Josh Gibson all in together here coming up here very soon.
And Kirk Gibson completes the Mount Rushmore. No.
And are there any Antonio Gibson, the running back? I don't know. Are there any other
Sure.
Gibsons that I'm forgetting? There's Gibson Steakhouse here in Chicago, which is very good. I don't know how the athletes are there though.
I don't know. And for the rest of it, we're gonna make you do a bit of work for that. That's gonna be on www.theusahof. We're gonna now go into the 5 coaches that got in.
Yep, we're no ties this year. Last year we had 6 because of ties.
Yeah, so we've got 5, and well, football.
Yep, literally.
Yeah,
it's sort of NASCAR.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I honestly think that might have helped.
It could have, because he's an outlier with the other 4.
Yeah.
So
yeah, so we'll just tell the 5, and then you can do the contributors. So the 5 who got in, people you may have thought would have gotten in already. Well, except for maybe the 5th. The 5th one's sort of interesting to me for the reason that Evan's already mentioned. Curly Lambeau. So Green Bay is very well represented. Cleveland again. Look at you. You got Paul Brown.
Mm-hmm.
From the college ranks, we got Amos Alonzo Stagg, Walter Camp, and Joe Gibbs.
Yep. 5 football. Lambeau and Brown, most important at the beginning of football. I mean, we already have Lombardi in here and Hallis. I mean, Lombardi, Hallis, Brown, and Lambeau are basically the Mount Rushmore of coaches of the early NFL. So I'm not surprised to see either of them. Stagg, an absolute legend in college football. Walter Camp, really responsible for football's development over time. Like, he is when people say someone's the dean of coaching, like Amos Alonzo Stagg was actually a disciple of Camp's. If you look at the coaching tree that goes out from Camp, everything basically comes from him. And Joe Gibbs, like you said, multiple-time Super Bowl winner with the Redskins, and also owner and a very successful owner in NASCAR as well. So
yeah,
all 5 very deserving. The next few, do you want to go through those?
Yeah, we'll do the 5 out. So we'll just sort of keep it that way. If someone's going to be the first female coach, it's going to be this lady, Pat Summitt.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got Bob Johnson.
Just by the way, she missed by 4 votes. We're talking, it was close.
Very close. Bob Johnson, Eddie Robinson, who we've been talking about a lot lately.
Yep.
Someone who you think might be up a little higher based on who we've just discussed, Paul Bear Bryant, and Tony Dungy, an interesting one.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We all know my opinion on that one. I'm much more like the next ones are Phil Jackson, Lou Holtz, Don Shula, Coach K, and Adolph Rupp. Yeah. I'd be much happier for all of those to pass Tony Dungy. Let's just say that for next year. So
I hear you. And all right, so we're going to close off with our contributors. Yeah. And we teased at the beginning about hockey being represented. So who could it be?
Yeah. So
what do you see? Go ahead.
I was just saying, to prove that alphabetism isn't a thing, our top vote getter by far in the history of this category, like dominating in the history of this category, Frank Zamboni is our first member on the contributors side of things, which is very interesting. So last time we had James Naismith, the creator of basketball, Al Davis, Lamar Hunt from football, Pete Rozelle, David Stern, important commissioners, Branch Rickey, the Dodgers guy who, basically broke baseball's color barrier. And now we have Frank Zamboni as our leading vote getter, which is very interesting.
Well,
joining him, I don't actually tied for second, very high, close to Zamboni or closer to Zamboni. Dana White, the founder of MMA or of the UFC.
Well, pretty not necessarily the founder, but the man who sort of like without him, their UFC would not have survived. He is the person who put it on the map. He's the person who created, who made mixed martial arts a must watch event once a month. Uh, I don't think he. I'm glad he's in for this because I don't see Power Slap doing anything. Sorry, Dana, I love you, but I'm not a fan of that one. But that's for another conversation. But I am very very happy that Dana White's here. Well earned
Yeah, he's also, I'd say, the most currently relevant of the people we have in this kid
by
category.
far. And I
So,
guess our youngest
and our youngest. Yep. Another, maybe the greatest general, often considered to be the greatest general manager, the guy who convinced Reggie White to go to Green Bay, Ron Wolf,
hmm
tied with Dana White for second here. Next up, the person who just missed last year, and I thought it was weird, but this year I kind of love the fact he's here. Very few people have had more impact on how athletes recover and are able to come back from injury in recent sports history than Dr. James Andrews. So Dr. James Andrews is here as a contributor. That's exactly where he belongs. It's very nice to see him here.
and
And
yeah,
then
yeah. Go ahead, please.
what?
No, go
And then
ahead.
finally, the founder of NASCAR, Bill France Sr., is here. And just
Mhm.
by the way, these five were the runaway five in this category. Others did pretty well. Next five, by the way, are Jack Kent Cook, Ralph Hay, Mike Ilitch, Burt Bell, and I'm really great to see Rube Foster this far up.
Yeah,
But those
Illich
guys
was a
were
surprise to me.
what?
Illich was a
Ilitch?
surprise to me. Yeah,
Yeah. Ralph Hay has been talked about a bunch. He's the nominee for Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, I mean, with White in France here, it's not that surprising, I suppose, that you're going to have the founder of football, Hay, get this close. But yeah, it's like I said, these five were head and shoulders. Cook is close-ish, but everybody else is very far behind. So a
right.
very five from here. So
Yeah, this one will be really interesting next year. And again, if you want to see who else, the whole list of the order, it's right now up on www.theUSAHOF.com. And Evan and I talk about what we've learned. And what we've learned as we're progressing is we're just going to be a lot more. Well, we learned a lot, but one of the things that we
yeah,
learned for sure is we're going to be a lot firmer with dates. We're going to be a lot more on people to sort of like help us out in terms of bringing in their votes. And once we sort of done this, it's a lot easier to do it again. Evan's done a
right.
great job with the templates that you've created, getting out to people.
Yeah.
We'll probably do also some digital for those who may not want to do it that way. So I think we had how many people on our committee this year? Is it 19? Did it go up to?
Give me a second. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Um, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20.
20. Okay. So we're probably going to have more this year or for
Yeah.
2025. I'm sure of it. We're going to have this out on March the 1st when this is going to
Yeah.
come out. And then it's going to go on a fixed date of November 1st. That's the date of your father's birthday. We're going to be honoring him every year. We're going to celebrate your dad's legacy. We could do that with my dad, but he didn't give a shit about anything sports wise. So that would be a waste. Dad, I love you, but you'd be the first one to raise a beer and say, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So things that we dealt with. There are a bunch of things we dealt with this year. We had to change our logo
Hmm?
because we didn't realize there were some copyright issues. The person we worked with, let's rip somebody else off. We had no idea.
More or less.
Yeah, more or less. So we had to get that taken care of. We had to get the templates taken care of for the letters because last time we just asked people and they sent us emails. This time it was a lot more serious. I was changing the format for the videos. I only ended up doing 48 of the 129 I meant to, partially because I got a cold that didn't allow me to talk for like a week. And this
Yeah.
kind of killed momentum. But there's a lot of stuff we learned this time through. I'm going to be a lot better about asking people too. I kind of was like timid about asking people, and some people said yes. I need to be much more forceful because some of the people who I didn't hear back from were just like, "Oh, I didn't even know this happened. I never got what you said. You should just
Yeah.
told me." I was like, "Oh, well, now I know." And so we're going to be a lot more forthright with that. But we want to make sure that, like I said, the important thing about this is we have the committee to make sure we have the right people in front of you. But ultimately, this hall, the reason we created the hall this way is we want this to not be a secret cabal of people debating something in a room, right? And then we come up with stuff and nobody quite understands why. I may still not understand why, for example, Roger Hornsby gets picked over
Mantle.
Mickey Mantle, right? I still may not know why that happens, but at least that's what the people want. That's what the vote is. And that's the important thing. I don't care so much who gets in the hall as much as that the people voting on it are you and not us, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and also too, because again, the whole process, it's not like we're if you think that there's an athlete that should be here, chances are Evan and I have already considered it. I guarantee it. But we
But
also
please let us know.
Hmm?
But honestly, if you think we've missed somebody, let us know. Like I'm
Well,
looking at
true,
the people
true.
we're going to be adding to the preliminary ballot next year. And so I'll tell you right now, 5 of them are going to be first ballot. So let's bring this up quickly.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
the 5 people who are eligible next year who will definitely see on the list are Dale Earnhardt Jr. So he'll be on the ballot with his dad. And by the way, in order to qualify, you have to be at least 50 years old, meaning that for this process, since it's class of 2025, you have to be born in 1974 or before, right? So these are people who were born in 74. We have 5
Yeah,
for
and that's
50.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've had a couple of people saying, "Well, where's Tom Brady?" Well, he's not 50 yet.
He's not here. He's not old enough yet.
Yeah,
It seems like he should be, but he's not. Tiger Woods is also not old enough yet. I've had a couple
right.
of people asking me about that. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. will turn 50 this year. Derek Jeter became eligible this year. Another sport we don't have anyone for, Dave Mira in BMX, turned 50 this year. Gary Hall Jr., the swimmer, turned 50. And Maurice Green, the track star, turned 50. So all 5 of them will definitely be on the preliminary list we're giving to our committee. A few other people have asked about. I say you'd probably see both Byron Nelson and Lee Trevino there. You'd also probably see Cal Ripken Jr. there. I almost definitely see Valerie Briscoe Hooks, the track star there.
Mhm.
But other than that, there's going to be some debate as to which football players, which basketball players, which baseball players, which name the sport. Are we going to do another person for billiards? William Moscone hasn't done that great. Are we going to go see somebody else from billiards? Are we going to see another lacrosse player? Are we going to see? Name the sport. Is if they're not represented, should we have somebody up there for someone to vote on? So I guess technically we have a lacrosse player, Jim Brown, although that's not necessarily what people think of first and foremost, Jim Brown. Although he's in both the football and lacrosse Hall of Fame. And Ted Williams is in the fly fishing Hall of Fame, so I guess we have a fisherman in there as well. But just this is work in progress, and we are not so proud as to be above criticism.
And ask for help.
And we're willing to ask for help. So if you think that there's something we can do to improve this, please let us
All
know.
means.
But thank you to everyone who's contributed and helped us with the initial stuff. Thank you for the feedback we've gotten from people, and thank you for everyone for voting.
Yeah,
Because that's really the main thing about this whole thing. So
it means a lot to us, and I don't know. Maybe we should do a. If we're going to be going back to Canton this year, we'll have to maybe do a show live or do something.
we should do a show live
I think
and
we should.
see if we
I
can
think we should.
talk. See if we can talk to some of those people and get to see if they have any feedback as well. So.
I think so. I think because that's the other thing we as part of our learning process. We finally sort of like we went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame together. Got to meet some of the other people that we got to talk to on a regular basis. Some just phenomenal people that we really enjoyed, and even just like the people there. I mean, like Evan was making friends with every Houston Texans fan. It was great.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I talked to some guys from Sports Illustrated. I shook hands with Willie Rofe. I almost passed out when I saw Mean Joe Green. Like I got the vapors. It was weird because I'm not a Steelers fan, but Mean Joe Green is just like
Yeah.
it's like Bigfoot. It's like someone who I mean, Bigfoot you don't know exists, but it's just like he's larger than life as a figure. Put it that way, right?
I'm
And
I'm of that age though, Evan, right? So like I remember as a little kid being pretty much the same age as that little kid. Hey, would you like a Coke? And those commercials,
yeah,
right? So
yeah. Yeah, it's like because like Zach Thomas walked by me multiple times. As I said before, we are the exact same height. So he's 9.25 or 9.75, right? And I didn't get the same feeling. I was within a foot and a half of Zach Thomas multiple times. I
Yeah.
think the same feeling is like a distant across the room view of Mean Joe Green. I don't know what it was. I did not expect that reaction, but it was
Yeah.
cool to see him. So
Yeah, so we'll be doing a lot more, and it's just it's a learning project process. I'm sort of looking forward to like 10 years from now when we look back. Can you believe that, and when we're saying to each other, can you believe we thought this?
I
Because
know.
just based on all
Well, I
the things
mean,
that we're going to learn.
oh, and one more thing just to expect. We've talked about this before, but just to throw it out there, the next 2 years, at least for now,
Hmm.
are going to look very similar to these first 2 years. We're going
In
to
terms
have
of the amount.
25 people
Yeah.
in terms of the amount. So 25 athletes, 5 coaches, 5 contributors. We're going to do that a few more times. After that, we're going to see. We'll have 100 in. Does it make sense to do 25 every time? We'll have to have debate about that. There are other categories we've thought of because someone said, "Hey, are you ever going to do teams to me?" The answer to that is, yeah, we thought about it.
We have
We thought about doing members of the
announcers.
media.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought about doing announcers. We thought about doing members of the media. We've thought about a whole bunch. We thought about doing a contributors section for people who are important in American sports but aren't American. So someone like Wayne Gretzky, just to
Hmm.
throw that out there as an idea. Um,
David
those are all things
Beckham.
we thought of, but it was too much for the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if we're gonna have fewer people going forward, then maybe we could add those categories. But that's something to see. But just know 2025 and 2026 should pretty much be the same format in terms of 25 athletes, 5 coaches, and 5 contributors, barring any ties. And then 2027, we'll see what the situation is. But we want to get to 100 athletes to start. And then if we still look at the list and we're like, no, there's just too many great people we haven't put in here,
Mhm.
then maybe we keep it again, or maybe we cut down or whatever. But we're just, for now, the plan is at least the next 2 years to keep it the same. So,
Yeah, and I think when we're looking at the 25 out, we're certainly correct to sort of like say 25 at
yeah.
this point.
Yeah. And if you look at the next 25, it's still a hell of a list. So, I
I mean,
mean,
there's
Bob Gibson, like I
surprising
said,
games that we haven't even talked about that
yeah,
we're making you go to the website to go see.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Bob Gibson and Barry Sanders are the next two out of the top 50. Both those are people who should be in. So,
Right. All right.
yeah.
So with
All right.
that,
So, do we want to wrap this up?
yeah, we're gonna wrap this one up, and then we're gonna if we're looking like we're in the same clothes for the next show that we're doing, it's because we are. But we're just gonna wrap this one up, and then we're gonna be right back with another show about the Baseball Hall of Fame because there's some big news there. Wherever you are, wherever you may be, make today count because it never comes again. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.